This is a real short workshop, so I'm going to try to get right to it. We only have 20 minutes. I'm Kristin Mulherin. I am the General Manager of Powder Bed Solutions at Nexa 3D. For the purposes of this panel, probably more importantly, I'm also the President of Women and 3D Printing. For those of you who aren't familiar, Women 3D Printing is a community of over 25,000 men and women in nearly 80 chapters across 35 countries on all 6 primary continents. If you're interested in learning more about women in 3D printing, definitely reach out to me after the fact on LinkedIn. Also, if you happen to be at Rapid, come by our happy hour, and then you can also meet a lot of new people as well. So today, though, we are doing a fireside chat with Tracy Frost. Tracy is the Director of Manufacturing Technology Program at the Office of the Secretary of Defense. Before we get into it, Tracy, do you want to just do a real short intro?
Sure. Well, good morning. Thanks for having me. This is fantastic. Yeah, my name is Tracy Frost. I'm the Director of the Manufacturing and Technologies office over at the Secretary of Defense's office. Part of my job, working over all manufacturing or across all manufacturing technologies, certainly additive is a major area of importance and investment for us. So excited to be here to kind of talk about. We have a lot of great new updates that we've made in the last year or two, and then a lot of great investments and partnerships. And I was excited to see the last session. I was listening to some of that, and it's so exciting. And I think one of the key points was the partnerships, and so it's great to be at a conference of this size as well. Doing this virtual is great. I feel like we've had a stronger reach, and so thanks for inviting me. Yeah.
Great. So like I said, we have a pretty short period of time here, and I want to definitely make sure we get to your Q&A, any questions you decide to put in the Q&A section. So to get started, though, I think just a really good way to kind of set the foundation is, Tracy, if you could give us a brief overview on the DoD Directive on additive manufacturing. And I think especially for this audience, it's interesting to learn a little bit more about that cross or that, breaking down those barriers between the DoD and industry. I think we speak about them quite often as separate things, and I think that there's a lot of opportunity for collaboration, and my understanding is that's very much what your office is about. So if you could give a little bit of a summary on that.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you. So we are actually coming up on our 10th anniversary of our Manufacturing Innovation Institutes, and the first one that was started was around additive manufacturing. So it's America Makes. If you haven't heard of America Makes, I would actually be surprised, but if you haven't, please check them out. You can find them online really easily. They're our biggest public and private partnership that we have. They're our strategic partners in all things additive, looking to increase the technology and looking to support the ecosystem around the technology and how we're adopting the technology, both in the industry and in the organic industrial base here at the department. They have members also from multiple federal agencies. NASA is a member, Department of Energy, Commerce. So that's our strategic partner. Looking a little more internal for the department, we recently developed, it was early 2021, we put out and published a strategy for the department. So the first ever DoD additive manufacturing strategy for across the department really focuses on the collaboration both internally within the department and externally with our partners. It works on roles and responsibilities within the department, how we're sort of self-organizing. There's so much great work already going on in the department, and we want to make sure that we are sharing those lessons learned across the services and sharing with our industry partners as well. So following that, there was a policy that was created on additive manufacturing that came out in the summer of 2021. And again, digs a little bit deeper into how we're actually kind of dividing the responsibility, how we're working together across the services and the agencies to develop and adopt additive. One of the points that I heard earlier was that, in the session earlier was that, additive isn't the solution for everything. And I think that's true. And really what resonates with us as well is we don't really know what it can solve yet, right? We don't really fully understand the benefits of additive. And so I think to get there faster, we have to collaborate across the communities. If we don't, it'll just be so stovepiped across the, between academia and the government. And we really need to make sure we're opening that collaboration up. And that's what our strategy really focuses on.
So I think, I want to paraphrase one of the questions that just came in on the Q&A. And it was about essentially how to expand our DoD customers beyond America Makes. And I was wondering, do you have any examples perhaps of when that has occurred, and that would be really informative in terms of for people who want to have that collaboration with the DoD?
Absolutely. You froze a little bit, but I think the question was, that's okay. I think the question is how can we partner with more and more companies, more and more industry and academia? Okay. Yeah, absolutely. Well, America Makes, and I would look at it this way. For us, America Makes is a partnership, right? That we look to America Makes to actually help us bring the whole community together, right? That's something where they can reach out and work with industry. So the members, it's not necessarily that you don't have to be a member of America Makes in order to do business, and work with the government. But it makes that we look to them as sort of a neutral party to gather everybody from the different communities together and determine, where are our biggest challenges and where do we need to work together. They roadmap together. So it's an opportunity for us to work with, one party that's helping sort of coordinate. That's why I think working with America Makes is so important. In terms of doing business, however, I mean, you can certainly still do business with the department. I would recommend that usually we kind of plug the websites at the end, right? But I think this is a great time to include it. If you go to the DoD ManTech.mil website, you'll find more information there about additive manufacturing work that we do. There's a joint additive manufacturing working group that is internal to the department, but they all are working with our industry partners on projects and investments, and again, looking to figure out where all those challenges are. The biggest one I think that we still have is qualification and certification of parts, right? And we're seeing more and more projects that we have investing in, again, what we call the ecosystem, the things that aren't, you have to slowly try to, we need these database sets of certification so we can move forward, right? We can't use it if we really don't know how to use it, if it's safe. I heard earlier, again, the gentleman from NASA was talking about we want to keep our astronauts safe. Same for DoD, right? We want to keep our warfighters safe. But we're really seeing huge strides working together. We partner with the FAA on a project right now, creating a specific database for a specific metal. But what's I think most important about that project, it's not just it's the process that we're going through. So we'll get to where we will have the data set for this specific material, but more importantly, it's how we're getting, what's the process to get there, right? To get that data set, agreeing across the community on how we're doing that. I think that's the most important thing right now, because it's a little all over the map, and we're working really hard, and I think making huge strides, like I said, to kind of come together. And again, America Makes, I mean, I'm sort of plugging it because, again, we look at them as our strategic partner to kind of bring everybody to the table. They have very frequently, several times a year, they have technology workshops and exchanges. So this is a great place to go and kind of find out exactly what's going on. But again, you can check out our website and find ways to contact. You can get in touch with my office that way, and we can get you in touch with the communities, that other working groups and community aspects that we have of the program.
When I think of the events from America Makes, I think of MMX and TRX. I assume those are kind of the events you're talking about that would be good to go and find opportunities that you're referring
to.
Yeah. You also touched on one of the questions in here, which was what's the relationship between the DoD and the FAA? You mentioned the metals database, I believe. Is there any other comments you can have on that?
So we work with our FAA partners in the offices over there, really trying to understand. They're also part of some of our road mapping efforts, and really looking to figure out what the investments we need to make to move additive forward, especially in the adoption piece. So we partner with them from a strategic point of view, but then we also are looking at very specific projects, and we have one, as I mentioned, the database right now that we're working on. I think that project started in 2020, and I think it's a 2-year effort. right now. We'll see kind of how that ends and if we want to, need to continue that or what our next sort of investment steps are. But FAA is a great partner. We really look to other agencies that are either, have the same sort of priorities that we do and where we can find those common challenges, or regulatory agencies that can help us. Because I think, a lot of times we're working on the technology and we're not thinking kind of outside that box. We can develop the technology in any of our, advanced manufacturing spaces all day long. But if industry and, both inside the DoD and outside, if we can't actually use it and we don't know how to use it, that's a problem. So also Defense Logistics Agency, to make sure we understand how we're marking additive parts and how we're tracking them. Inventory, we're working with our contracting offices to understand how to put language into solicitations better, so that we can signal to industry that it is acceptable to propose, right, an additive manufactured part in an acquisition. So we're really kind of stepping outside of our, we're working in our research and with our research and engineering hat on, but really looking at outside of that, how do we set these technologies up for success, for being adopted as quick as possible. And the third thing is really also training, right? I'm not sure if that's been discussed a lot, but training is so important. If as everybody knows, if we can't hire folks that know how to use additive appropriately, all from the design phase all the way to the manufacturing phase, we're not going to really benefit from it as well. So that's another thing that we're really focused on. We work internally with the Defense Acquisition University on training inside the department, and then we're working with our partners outside as well for training.
I think it looks like Beth Kreiderman Moss just put a question in literally about 10 seconds before you started to talk about workforce development. Okay. She was reading your mind. She'd asked, how do you think we can engage workforce education to a greater degree as it pertains to AM? Do you have anything else to add on that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm sorry, I was trying to get the chat up and I can't seem to get it up on my screen. So thank you for relaying the questions. Yeah, that is really important. I think one of the big lessons, again, kind of taking a step back and looking at training programs across all of our manufacturing efforts, it's really important to, it happens in the communities, right? In individual communities, regional, areas. But having programs that we can replicate, that we pilot and that are successful, and then we can replicate, across different communities. We work really strongly with our community colleges, with our universities, with tech schools to integrate those that type of training into their systems, because we can create programs all day long, but if they're not really, people can't find them and they're not in the communities, where people are looking for training. Or even upskilling, right? So training comes from the younger generation sort of coming out of school, looking into getting into this area, or people looking to upskill from their current job skills. We work pretty closely to try to replicate that training across all those areas. Again, if that's something that's of interest to you, please reach out through our website. Happy to have discussions about that. Whether I don't know where she's coming from, but if you're interested in getting training in your area versus you're part of the curriculum development community, all of that, we'd be really interested to talk to you.
Great. I want to go back, kind of pivot back to a previous conversation. There's a good question here that I'm super interested in. Is there transparency on the budget allocation when it comes to government investing in new technologies such as additive manufacturing?
Yeah, so I think that's a little bit of a tricky question sometimes with budgets. We follow the president's budget, and it's when it's published, it's obviously then publicly available. We do talk about our investments. You can see those; they're in published documents called R2s that are online. So you can see where we're making investments in additive manufacturing and all of our advanced manufacturing portfolios. Most of our projects, especially in this space, they're pretty public. Once we're working on them, I've mentioned one or two that So yeah, we're pretty transparent once the budget's available and it's public. We're allowed to talk about that. Again, I think coming to either connect with us, and we'll connect you into the right either working groups or collaboration groups that we have, and you'll start to hear about those projects. You mentioned like TRX, and if you attend those events, again, you'll see a lot of the government projects presented, and you'll get a feel for the investment levels there. Yeah.
So you've mentioned a couple websites throughout this conversation, and I think because it's been such a quick conversation, I haven't been a chance personally, obviously, to write them down. When we wrap up here, maybe you could put in the general chat some of the websites that you've referenced so that people have access to those.
Yeah,
It'll be, I think
absolutely.
we're going to go straight to networking after this, but everyone will have access to the general chat.
Okay,
With
fantastic.
that said, let's do we've gone through all of the Q&A, well, most of them. And one final one that had the most actual questions was, does the DoD collaborate with European certification organizations? If so, which ones are there?
That's a really good question. I would have to double check to see. I don't know the specifics of which ones or specifically if we do. I know that that's important to collaborate though with our international partners. That is a priority of our, my leadership. And we do work across some of those boundaries. I just don't have the specifics on that. Happy to follow up though with that question for sure. Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, we just have 2 minutes left, it looks like, before we break for the networking session. Do you have anything to wrap up with that we haven't touched upon in this speed round of Fireside Chat?
Yeah. No, this is great, like speed dating, right? Yeah, no, I just appreciate the opportunity to come and talk about the work that we're doing. We clearly have a lot of other projects, and it's kind of tough to get into it in such a short amount of time. But again, I really highly recommend checking out the ManTech, DoD ManTech.mil website and AmericanMakes.us website. And you'll get a flavor of a lot of the initiatives and efforts going on there in detail. And certainly reach out to us from those websites, and we're happy to chat further and get you in contact with the teams, really, kind of our boots on the ground teams that are working within the services. But the services are just going, gangbusters on this work and are super passionate. So it's a great group of people to work with. And yeah, they're really making strides. It's a little bit of a slow and steady case, I think, with qualifying and certifying parts and understanding, again, the long-term effects. As I said, we would make sure, especially in our, aircraft and space sectors, we don't want to put critical parts on something that we don't understand the failures yet. We want to make sure we're keeping everybody safe, but we're making strides in that area. We have some flight critical parts that are already, that are already being flown. So it's definitely moving really quickly. And we're also, we're starting to look at, last thing I'll say is we're starting to look at how we can use additive to specifically like do repairs or even initial production, maybe in transit, on the way to a different location. And how do we do that, maybe even on an aircraft, which whole host of other problems when you're on you're on an aircraft or you're on a ship that's got, different weather and temperature fluctuations and movement and all that stuff. So that's kind of the next big exciting challenge as well.
Great. Well, as I mentioned, I think we're going straight into the networking session. Tell me if I'm wrong. You can find me there if you have any questions on women in 3D printing or Nexa 3D, either one. Tracy, hopefully you can stick around a little bit and people can find you if they have any additional questions as well. Thanks so much, Tracy. It was fun.
Sounds good. Thank you. Thanks, Kristin.
And thank you both for an excellent discussion.